This is an absolute win for Donald Trump, not just the substance of the opinion, but also the court had the option here to make the decision effective immediately or go through a traditional waiting period of 25 days. There's no expedited period. This effectively grants Donald Trump blanket immunity because it makes it seems to me now, impossible for a trial to go forward, either in the classified documents case, because this is also at stake there, and the January 6th case.
Following the Supreme Court's immunity decision, some worry it would give a president power to assassinate their enemies, which is why the feds have put stares, solid food, and words in protective custody. Because those are his enemies. Stares, right? Words, solid food. See, now it's funny.
And I think when you look at the dissenting opinion, Devin read part of it. This line stands out to me. It says the decision, quote, makes a mockery of the principle foundational to our Constitution and system of government that no man is above the law.
Donald Trump just got an absolute win with his immunity ruling, and things are not okay in the White House right now. In fact, the Supreme Court recently decided on the former president's immunity case. And guess what, guys? Experts are already coming out and they're saying that this adds another obstacle in front of special counsel Jack Smith. And as you guys might be aware, Jack Smith, he's been trying his best to speed up this process in Donald Trump's January 6th case for obvious reasons, right? But he has failed at every turn, and it doesn't seem to have any kind of good outlook when it comes to what he can do with this trial at this point. In fact, this newest development only makes things even worse for him. But that's not the message that we're seeing in mainstream media. The message is very confusing when you think about it, right? I mean, others say that he gets some immunity, while there are some who claim that Donald Trump had absolute immunity in office. Now, we're going to go ahead and straighten all of that out today, but I want to go ahead and start with something that's very telling here. The Biden campaign is nervous.
Now, if Dems choose to replace Biden, it could come down to Gavin Newsom versus Kamala Harris. Interesting showdown. One candidate screwed most of California, and the other is Gavin Newsom. She put a lot of people in jail.
They're sweating bullets, and this only adds to their problems. So here's what the president had to say after this historic decision was announced by the Supreme Court.
No one is above the law, not even the President of the United States. With today's Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity, that fundamentally changed.
Tonight, President Biden delivered a stark warning about the Supreme Court's ruling on presidential immunity.
The American people must decide if they want to entrust the president once again, the presidency, to Donald Trump, now knowing he'll be even more emboldened to do whatever he pleases whenever he wants to do it.
It was his first time making remarks at the White House since the debate. Despite his poor performance, First Lady Dr. Jill Biden downplayed the impact, telling Vogue magazine for its August cover story they will not let those 90 minutes define the 4 years he's been president. We will continue to fight.
I know I'm not a young man.
The Biden campaign is making the same case with a new ad just released this morning showing the president at a rally the day after the debate.
But I know how to do this job. I know right from wrong.
Considerably sharper and more energetic than when he was on stage with Donald Trump.
If we finally beat Medicare.
A new CBS News poll shows how the debate impacted voters, with 72% saying Biden does not have the mental and cognitive health to serve as president, compared to 65% before the debate. 50% believe Trump does. Among registered Democrats, 54% think Biden should run for president. 46% say he should not.
Did any of you guys catch that debate? Because a lot of critics will say that the last 4 years was way worse than what we saw last night.
Online conspiracy theorists believe Joe Biden struggled in the debate because he was hit with a directed energy weapon. This is called Havana syndrome, although doctors said it's more likely he was Havana stroke. That was good. Is that my phone? That was funny.
But here's the important fact here. President Biden released a warning right after the Supreme Court ruled on this case. And while there are those who say that he's just looking out for the American people, many people claim otherwise. It's not probable that Donald Trump is removed from most of his legal cases. Although this does open the idea of him being free to campaign without much of a worry. And that's the part that scares the Biden campaign the most. The fact that Donald Trump will be free to do whatever he wants and free to talk to the American people. Now, getting to this decision from the Supreme Court, it's around like 111 pages long? I know that sounds long, but don't worry guys, I got you. So it starts off with why this was even raised in the first place. Now, this is in relation to January 6, 2021. Federal grand jury indicted former President Donald Trump on 4 counts of conduct that happened during his presidency after the November 2020 election. Now, remember that key detail, as the timeline affects this decision a whole lot, okay? So the idea that Donald Trump allegedly conspired to overturn the results of the elections. Now, the former president said that he had absolute immunity at the time, which means that he could not be criminally prosecuted for actions performed within the outer perimeter of his official responsibilities. Now, this was the argument from former President Donald Trump from the beginning. So he's saying he has some level of immunity being the president of the United States, because the position would sort of be useless if there wasn't some sort of leeway there. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. Anyway, so the reasoning is that he would not be able to function if he feared legal repercussions for actions that he may have to undertake during his term. Just take President Joe Biden right now. He's greenlit billions of dollars to go into different wars where thousands of people are dying. He's basically told the Ukraine to go ahead and attack inside of Russia. There's also the issue of the open border where actual terrorists have entered the country unvetted. We also can't forget about the crimes committed against Americans here at home and how Biden's policies have affected them. But this ruling from the Supreme Court would protect past and future presidents for official acts that they take upon during their term. So the argument was that if a president did not have immunity, then whoever was stepping down would be targeted by his or her political enemies as soon as they leave the White House. So if we get back to Trump now, this ruling suggests that he can possibly claim immunity from criminal prosecution, but only for actions that were within his constitutional powers as president. So this includes the last days of his presidency, which may cover him right until January 20th, 2021. And this is why I said that this date was so important, guys, because this tells us that presidents have immunity for official acts, although not all acts done in office can be considered as official acts. Lower courts would decide on the categorization of these actions, but it's still a game changer for Trump. It's already being hailed as a huge win because it is expected to further delay legal proceedings against the former president. It also rejects a decision from the Federal Appeals Court earlier this year where they found that Donald Trump had no immunity for alleged crimes that he committed during his presidency. Chief Justice John G. Roberts Jr. wrote for the majority that Donald Trump at least had presumptive immunity for his official acts. Jack Smith, though, feels as if he could still continue the case based on actions that are not considered as official. Although he would need to narrow his indictment of Donald Trump, and lower courts could hear a trial as early as this year, which now kind of opens up the discussion about time. So there's a lot left to sort out on what constitutes an official act versus a private one. And that's where things get tricky for Jack Smith and his goal. And I'm saying goal because this is what Republicans see with him, that he has an end goal, and that is to find Donald Trump guilty, which is not what President Joe Biden is calling for, right? He wants the law to be upheld. He says that the law is the same for everyone. So why does it seem as if this isn't the norm when we're talking about Trump? Well, Representative Jim Jordan is now calling on the left to uphold democratic norms, similar to how Democrats celebrated Biden for not being charged for willfully holding on to classified documents. So it's him saying that the left should not be hypocritical when it comes to how the law works. He also blasted Smith and said that hyper-partisan prosecutors like him cannot weaponize the rule of law to go after current administration's chief political rival. He also hopes that the attacks on Trump will stop given the decision from the Supreme Court. Now, speaking of which, there are many within the Democratic Party that do feel as if it is time for President Biden to stop. Now, this now opens up the possibility of seeing Vice President Kamala Harris in the White House way before the 2024 presidential election. Now, I talked about that in a previous video, so make sure you guys check that out. It's probably a link here or here. Anyway, if not, in the description down below. But as always, guys, thank you so much for liking the video. Thank you so much for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the next one. Take care.